So I just wanted to take a second tonight to talk about the difference between a professional mix and just a basic, mix you would do at your house. There's a big difference, so we're going to get into it. So the first thing that you got to understand as an engineer, my job is to perceive depth, make image, and overall create a bigness. I think the number one thing that kills an independent album is there is no space, there is no definition, there is no dynamics at all. And that's what we talk about when we talk about higher end equipment. Can it capture that kind of dynamic range? Can it show that between the speakers? That's what we're all apparently trying to get to when we talk about making music. So it's like, if it can sound as good as possible, what does that mean? Like, a lot of people don't even know what that means. They're like, oh, I just want my album to sound better. Well, I mean, as an engineer, I understand that there's certain things that we can do to certain instruments that make them sound bigger. One of the cool things that I wanted to show you with vocals, there's a Neumann sitting over here, and then it's running into a preamp, which most of you guys have. If you have like a basic stock interface, you're going to have a preamp on it, and you can use that preamp to preamp the microphone. But once it hits that preamp, it's usually like, okay, that's it, we're done, we'll just put it into the Pro Tools session, and if you're smart, really, you'll send it off to somebody that understands the principle. So I'm going to show you what we're doing on this vocal for this song. The song sounds like this right now. So it sounded absolutely nothing close to that. This is more like an old school hip hop kind of song. But I want to show you what goes on with the microphone, and then you can interpret everything that I'm saying and put it to all the instruments in your song. And that's what we're doing with either plugins or hardware. So this is how it works. So we'll get over here. First of all, we started with an MPC Renaissance and just an Axiom, which is sort of funny. But up top we have the Manly stuff. We got the mastering version of the massive passive EQ. We got the dangerous back EQ underneath the Manly, and none of that's being used right now on the vocals. But the Manly is. I'm sorry, but I'm going to show you how this works. What is a patch bay? How does that work? The converters down here are contributing to a lot of your sound quality. Everything runs in and out of those. So when we start talking about high-end sound quality, that is one of the number one key contributing factors of that sound quality. So what we're doing in the patch bay, if you look down here, if you can see that, we're going to go out of the Control 24's preamp. We're going into the left solid-state channel. We're running it in limit mode. We're going out of that, we're going into this, and we're going to do some different EQ changes on that, just to add another stage. Then we're running out of that, we're going into the Manly left channel, which is over there on the left side. And then out of that, we're running back out of that into the Manly right channel. That is a killer vocal chain, and that's why a lot of you guys are trying to get this high-end vocal sound. And that's the most amazing part of this is that's what we do every single day. We mix songs. We're using the best strength of each piece of equipment, if that makes any sense, and we're using that for each individual part of your song. So let's just say that maybe we're not talking about vocals. Just imagine this on everything that you have. You have higher end equipment. You're going to have more spacing, more depth, more dimension if a person knows what the heck they're doing. Now, if I don't know what I'm doing, I can still use all this high end equipment, and you're not going to get the results, and you're going to say, wow, it sounds like a professionally garbage. It just doesn't sound right, because you have to know how to use this stuff in order to, be successful with it. So we have the two DBXs here. We have the Manly. Let's say you have some drums that you're just like, I just can't get them to kick. The DBX 160As, we can use them as a stereo pair, and we can use them on a drum bus. And a lot of times we'll use them on hip-hop kicks, we'll use them on hip-hop snare drums, we'll re-record stuff, and utilize them as much as we can depending on your budget. That's why I ask people, what is your budget? What do you want to do? Because I can spend 13, 14 hours re-recording stuff, sending things through different inserts and different buses. I can get into reverbs and dynamics. So this is what we're going to talk about. if I start using that manly mastering version of the massive passive, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, the master or not. The fact is I can fine tune these drums and make them sound absolutely, totally better than what you came and what you started with, using the right compression and the right EQ. So now you start thinking, okay, well, this guy's an EQ man. He can compress stuff. What does compression do and what does EQ do? We're going to try to talk to you real quick before this tape runs out. You got 5 minutes. So we're going to talk to you. All this stuff makes a lot of great sense, you know, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to, does it sound better? Number one, professional mixes, if you have certain parts of the song, we're going to add effects to it. And what do we mean by effects? We're going to create space behind it. We're going to add an image behind it. If you listen to some of the greatest hip-hop albums, they have reverb on them. They have a lot of verb on them, but they're used to the point where they're used perfectly in that song, or as perfect as you can get. When you come in with dry songs, you're not gonna have the rooms and the dimension that you want. You're not gonna have that bigger kick drum. You're not gonna have the high end, you know, real nice and shiny without being, you know, irritating. I mean, there's so many things that mixing does, and mixing does take longer than mastering. Mastering is the process where we take your songs and you have them all mixed, but a lot of guys are being deceived into thinking they've mixed their own songs, but there's so much more we can do. And then you start to realize, okay, I understand where you went with your mix, so it's great to do like a stock mix for yourself, but you got to understand we can take it to a new level for you. And once you start understanding that, your music is fun to make. You're not worried about the money you're spending anymore. You're just sort of like, man, this is actually doing something. This is great music, and I'm proud to have my name on it. So yeah, mixing, I wasn't able to offer a great mix till about 4 or 5 years ago. I've been doing this for like 13, so it's like, you know, when somebody tries to ask me questions about how to make your vocals sound better or how to make your kick drum pop, like dude, there's a lot of tricks and tips, and it depends on, every song's different. So, you know, one song might have a heavy bass line, so we're gonna have to really tighten up your kick drum to make it pop like you want it. You know, one song might have some vocals that need to be fat and need to be big at the bottom end. You know, not every song you just cut off and roll off 120 hertz. So every song has its own unique what it needs. So it's sort of like I sit back and I'm just, you know, really I'm like, God, what does this song need? You know, that's what I do. And it's like, and 99% of the time, if the person pays, if the person has faith in what they're doing, and if the person really has ambition to go forward with their music career, I'm going to end with this. Everybody that I've ever done mixes for that's paid has respected each other. We've had a great business relationship. They've always been successful with what they do. The people that start doubting themselves, start thinking, I'm spending money on nothing, you know, I'm not doing the right things. You can't imagine how much we can do in here until you've actually asked me to do it. And a lot of guys will ask me, well, how much does it cost to get my songs mixed and mastered? Well, it's like, I want you to understand the process. This is mixing. There's a lot of things going on in this song. Mixing, you know, I started doing this around 6 o'clock. It's 12 now. So, and it's still not complete. There's probably another 8-9 hours worth of work on this. To get those kind of mixes, to have that kind of album, you don't have to be a millionaire. I'll work with people and I'll work with your budgets, but please don't like think that we're some kind of one-stop shop, spend $50 and you're going to get your stuff back and it's going to sound amazing. It just doesn't work that way. You know, the greatest bands in the world, they spend killer amount of time trying to get the best tones for their guitars, the best drums for the drum room, the best, you know, so we work with this. And the other thing is learning the room and knowing how a room affects things. If you don't have a room that's treated, you're not going to be able to hear reverbs right. You're going to make your stuff muddy trying to do this at home. Compressors, you're not going to hear that right. You're going to make your stuff sound either drowned or ear fatiguing. EQ, you're not going to be able to hear that right. The curve's going to be off a little bit, and you're going to EQ it to your room. So the number one thing I'm trying to tell you is, you know, I don't pretend like I'm a doctor, and I'm not going to go over to your house and tell you, hey, I'm a doctor, just let me handle this. I think there has to be a lot more respect in the music world, that there are engineers that want to work with independent artists, but we get to this point where we go, you sort of throw your hands up and go, man, I hope that people start to get it. I'm not putting myself on a pedestal or saying I know more than anybody. I am saying that I do know a lot about this kind of stuff. And I know how to get what's in your head to come through them speakers. And once that happens, it's like, it's history. So the people I work with still, they know that. They're like, well, get it to Doug, he'll do it. And that's where I come in on a lot of ends of mixes and